in 8 years of operating full-time in crypto, I've never quite seen a setup like the setup for Solana. The three things that I think are going to lift it substantially higher are you have this massive unrelenting interest in stablecoins and tokenization, and Solana has one of the best and most interesting solutions there. You have the rise of Solana digital asset treasuries with charismatic and well-spoken leaders like Kyle Samani, who will be on CNBC talking about Solana ad infinitum. And then you have the expectation that we're going to see a lot of ETFs launch. When we've had these things line up before, you had Bitcoin ETFs, Bitcoin dapps, and rising interest in fiat hedges, and the price tripled. You had Ethereum ETFs, Ethereum dapps, and rising interest in stable coins, and we're from 1,500 to 4,000 plus. And then you think about the fact that Solana is a tiny asset. It's 1/5 the size of ETH. It's 1/25 the size of Bitcoin. Just a little bit of flows into it because of those things I called out. There could be a real supply demand crunch there. And I think the price could double or triple in relatively short order as institutions make their first allocations into this space. If you take the median opinion of XRP in the crypto community, it's probably negative. That does not matter for flows. The only thing that matters is, are there people that really like the asset? Because the people who dislike it just don't buy it. But if there are people who like it, that's better than having a sort of meh reaction, like an asset that everyone's like, oh, the umpteenth layer one, meh. I'd rather have people who love an asset and hate an asset. That's actually good for flows. So XRP is an example where, of course, there'll be flows because there is the XRP 10,000 people, and they're all going to want to buy.
In today's video, Matt Hougan breaks down the next wave of crypto, from stablecoins and tokenization to the rise of Solana and digital asset treasuries. He explains why institutions are piling in, how ETFs and ETPs amplify flows, and why media narratives from charismatic leaders can move markets. Matt also weighs in on regulatory risks, the Clarity Act, and which assets could see real supply demand squeezes driving prices higher. If you want actionable insights on what's really moving crypto and how to think about thematic investing, this is one you don't want to miss. And don't forget to join our Telegram group for daily Bitcoin and market updates, links in the description below. Let's catch him up to know more.
I was 90% confident we were going to get it, and now I may be flirting with below 50 or around 50. The two reasons for that, you mentioned one, which is the government shutdown. They literally can't work on this because the doors are closed because the government's incompetent. And the second reason is we've seen the Democratic counterproposal in the Senate to the Republican bill in the Senate. And the Senate is where all the action is right now on the Clarity Act. And the Democratic proposal is a non-starter. It's aggressively anti-crypto. It feels like it was penned almost by Elizabeth Warren. And so there's not an easy path to reconcile the Republican version with the Democratic version. They're on two very opposite sides, and it looks a bit like the Democrats want to make this a difficult political issue. If it doesn't happen this year and we bleed into next year, it probably gets even harder. The way it's resolved, I think, is you're going to need lobbying pressure from crypto and lobbying pressure from the traditional finance industry to encourage those Democrats to move along. I'm probably still at like a 55% chance it gets through, but I do think it's a real risk to the market. If we see the Democrats digging their heels with their current approach, you could see expectations sour for this, and that would be bad for everything except for maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum. Everything beyond that, I think, would suffer from a regulatory perspective.
Okay, let's shift to ETP. What do you call ET Palooza?
ET Palooza, yeah, man.
ET Palooza. Okay, so here's my big question about this. Everyone's talking about more ETPs, ETFs, ETPs, whatever you want to call them. They're coming. Everybody knows that they're coming. You know, the SEC has put out much better guidelines. We have we have standards from them for the first time. So like, there's no doubt that they're coming. The thing that I can't wrap my head around is I go back to, Matt, I don't know if you remember, I think it was the first time we had you on the show, right when the Ethereum ETPs were about to launch. And we were all so excited about that. And then they just bombed and didn't get the flows. And I think I have PTSD from that. So is is ET Palooza going to actually matter and bring flows, or is it just going to be a whole bunch of announcements and not a ton of demand?
Oh, it's a great question. I think the right way to think about ETPs is not that they bring flows, it's that they amplify flows. So in retrospect, looking back at the Ethereum launch, why did they not bring flows into ETH? Well, literally no one wanted to buy ETH between July and whatever, maybe for about a year, right? For the first year that they were in the market until maybe April 15th or May 1st of this year. That's when ETH got its momentum back. We had reorgs at Treasury, we had new technical advances, and we had the stablecoin trade. So what that tells you is they don't bring flows on their own. You can't launch a Bitcoin Cash ETF and suddenly we're all talking about eCash again, right? That's not going to happen. But if a asset has a good story and a good reason for flows, then the ETFs are like a super highway that let traditional investors pile in alongside retail investors. So I think it's going to be pick and choose them, right? Do I think Solana will get flows? I absolutely think Solana will get flows. Do I think Chainlink will get flows? I think Ryan is right, but early. I think the narrative will roll onto Chainlink after people digest Ethereum and Solana. Would Hype get flows? I think Hype would get flows. Will Litecoin ETPs get flows? Boy, I would be surprised. So think of them as a flow amplifier and not a way of inciting flows. That's the right way to think of these ETPs. So there'll be winners and losers. But it's good to have them because it does make the flows flow faster when people are excited about an asset.
There's also, for what it's worth, if you look at the first few months of the Ethereum ETP flows, there was just net outflows, which is a strange thing considering this is a new ETP that launched. But the reason, of course, that occurred is because you had all of these assets that have been in these OTCQX traded trusts. I forget the ticker for Grayscales, but of course it's like a GBTC phenomenon, right? Where you had these investors who have been locked up and that these publicly traded tickers have been trading at a discount. And so once that discount closes, they decide they want to exit the market and kind of take their capital back. There's also hedge funds that are in those trades for those reasons and whatnot. So I don't think, because not as many of those exist for these other assets, and they certainly aren't as large as the Bitcoin and Ethereum trusts were, I don't think that you have that same kind of initial selling pressure. But I agree with Matt. I think the flows will be varied across different assets from the amount and the timing. And net, it's just positive for investors that we now have these ETPs available for them to allocate when and if they decide to have that exposure in their portfolio.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. One thing that occurred to me, which maybe should influence his Bitwise product strategy, that's why I do these calls with Ryan, is the way they can incentivize flows if they make it easier. So as an example, right now, everyone wants to invest in stablecoins and tokenization. It's a hop to get to Ethereum and Solana, which TradFi will pronounce Solana or whatever. But if you have a stablecoin and tokenization ETP, or you have a thematic ETP, then it becomes easy. I want to invest in stablecoins. I Google stablecoin in Charles Schwab and up peps this. I do think that can incentivize flows. So maybe the index thematic strategies will drive flows in a way that the individual crypto assets will not.
It's so true, because I have the texts that I have gotten have either been about how to invest in Bitcoin or how to invest in stablecoins. That is the questions I have gotten from outside. Nobody asks me how to invest in tokenization. They don't even know what that means for the most part. And nobody asks me, I mean, unless they're like tuned in a little bit. They don't generally ask about other specific assets. To be honest, they might ask about XRP. That's probably the only other one that they ask about, because the XRP army is so freaking loud on socials and everywhere. It's insane. And XRP to 10,000 makes zero sense. But for whatever reason, there's like thousands of influencers who post it every day. It's insane.
That is very true. Well, I'll add one more thing about ETF flows, which maybe people in crypto don't understand. It doesn't matter how many people dislike an asset. So if you take the median opinion of XRP in the crypto community, it's probably negative. That does not matter for flows. The only thing that matters is, are there people that really like the asset? Because the people who dislike it just don't buy it. But if there are people who like it, that's better than having a sort of meh reaction, like an asset that everyone's like, oh, the umpteenth layer one, meh. I'd rather have people who love an asset and hate an asset. That's actually good for flows. So XRP is an example where, of course, there'll be flows because there is the XRP 10,000 people and they're all going to want to buy. That may be, I think, misunderstood by the market a little.
That's a wrap with Matt Hougan's insights from Solana and Ethereum to the ETFs and flows shaping crypto's next leg up. If you found this useful, hit subscribe and join our newsletter for daily market updates and exclusive crypto insights. Remember, this is educational only. Always do your own research and never invest more than you can afford to lose.